It's time for the Blox review for the Wii. Have you ever played Jenga before? Well, if you haven't, the object of that game is to pull out pieces of blocks from a structure without toppling the structure over. Blox is similar in one aspect, but it's quite opposite for the most part. There are several different game modes you can play, all having something to do with the structures of blocks in each level. In one mode, the point is to throw a ball at the structures to try to knock down all the blue blocks in as few tries as possible. Another mode is actually pretty similar to Jenga. You have to pull out certain blocks from a structure without toppling over the wrong blocks. Like this mode, there are several other modes where you have to either pull or knock away blocks with point values. There's a lot to do in single player mode, but the real fun is in the multiplayer sections. Each person takes turns knocking down or pulling away blocks to see who can get the highest score at the end. There's quite a bit of strategy in each level. It's a physics game, so there are some variables you have to take into account before you throw the ball if you want a high score, like knowing the best place to throw the ball, how hard you throw it, and the position of the camera when you throw it. There are several types of blocks as well that can affect the outcome of a turn. Some blocks disappear when the ball touches it, some blocks only disappear when two of the same kind touch each other, and some blocks explode when the ball hits it, which makes for some cool explosions. Certain levels will give you a different ball, like a bowling ball instead of a baseball, which can have a significant difference in the outcome of a throw. There are other multiplayer games like taking out your opponent's fortress before they do, carnival-style shooting ranges, and even an ice rink-like arena where you have to move your specific colored blocks into the point-valued areas. The shooting games and the ice rink ones are not really that fun. Someone can be very cheap with the shooting games by keeping the reticle to a point on one side of the screen and blasting away every target because the targets don't move from their launch point, and the ice rink goes on for too long and gets dull. The big bulk of fun are in the modes the game is supposed to be played for, knocking down or pulling away blocks to see who can get the most points. The graphics aren't the best, but I wouldn't call them bad. The game looks good, but I feel like they could have spruced things up a bit. I think it would have looked better with more detail. It almost feels like I'm playing on a system in between the N64 and the GameCube. The N60 Cube. Where have I heard that before? Not as good as the GameCube. It's like it was meant for a console in between those two. The N60 Cube. Wow, that was lame. The controls are almost perfect. You can position the camera with either the nunchuck or just hold down the B button and move the Wiimote to look around, and hold down A and flick the Wiimote to throw a ball. To grab a block and move it, hold down both A and B simultaneously and move the Wiimote in the correct direction. The problem with this control method is that the Wiimote can be overly sensitive and your moves can disrupt other blocks, which can be bad for your score. The camera was kind of a problem as well. It wouldn't let you zoom in. Now, this next part isn't really the game's fault, it's just caused from playing it, and that is that your hand, wrist, and arm can get really sore from flicking or swinging the Wiimote downward over and over and over. I'd advise you to stretch your arm and hand muscles before playing this game. There's a creative mode where you can design your own levels, which I thought was cool. This gives the game a lot of replayability. However, it can be tricky in getting used to this mode. It can be difficult in telling where your block is in relation to where you actually want to put it. It doesn't take too long to figure it out, but it can still be frustrating. Blox is a pretty good game, virtually perfect controls, figuring out the best strategy for each level is fun and challenging, great multiplayer gameplay, lots to do in both single and multiplayer modes, and creating your own stages is fun. However, I think the graphics could use some more detail, the camera can be frustrating at times, the controls for when you're pulling blocks out of structures could be overly sensitive, which could mess up your score, some of the multiplayer games are really not that fun, and even though there's a lot to do in single player mode, I really didn't find it to be that enjoyable. The real fun is in the multiplayer modes. Overall, it's still a pretty fun game, especially when playing with other people. This is one of those games where an idea can be simple, yet fun. It's a game that would probably appeal to a younger audience, but I think it can still be fun for all ages. This game gets a 3.5 out of 5 with the title of Good.